A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the signing of the completion of compliance and compliance of Zimbabwe with CHA.
It's kids. You still need a master set.
That man is building. Can you tell him? This must be history. We just need to put cards or put the thing. There are too many.
This is your occupation certificate from the municipality, from Ipuleni, and this is your certificate indication completion and compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Tara. Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much, MEC Mutara. Truly appreciate that. Program Director, I'll acknowledge the Premier and the MEC as well as the Executive Mayors. You've already gone through protocol. I don't want to waste time because the Premier is the one that is going to address us. So I just want to go through some few things quickly. Honorable Premier, I want to start this morning by acknowledging a situation that is out of our control, but as the Department of Basic Education in Gauteng, we are managing it. This morning, as we officially welcome learners and educators, there are some learners that are still at home, not at school. This morning, as we join other provinces in resuming this year's academic year, there are some parents that are supposed to be at work, they're at home, taking care of the children that we could not conclude to place, or children that still need to get to school. And on behalf of the department, I don't want only to apologize, but I want to reassure parents that last year during this particular period, we had almost 35,000 learners that were unplaced. Fortunately, this year we are now left with less than 700 learners that still need to be placed. The 35,000 that could not be placed last year, we managed to place them by the end of March. And I want to assure parents that the 700 that we need to place at the department, we are putting a firm commitment that will place them before the end of January. By yesterday, the HOD and the team, they were working extremely hard overnight to conclude this task. Honorable Premier, it is not lack of planning or lack of schools that we could not place the 700 kids. We have a phenomenon that we call choice, and we also have something that is beyond our control, where hundreds and hundreds of learners prefer to come to Gauteng to learn. Where we are, Premier, we are proud that indeed majority of parents prefer Gauteng. We are proud that indeed majority of parents prefer public education, but reality is there are certain schools that parents prefer, and therefore we clock the system with those particular schools. I want to give you a practical example, Premier. When you came here, when you took a turn from the main road, there is a school there called Didier Primary School. It was chock-a-block with parents. Parents that come from this community who have left a beautiful school like this, but they prefer a school in town. And that's the price we are paying as the education department. That we are building beautiful schools in the townships. But there is this mentality that the township is bad and the former Model C schools are good. Reality is, there is no single teacher that is trained differently. All our teachers are trained from the same pot. There is no university that trains teachers for private schools or former Model C schools. And I'm proud of the quality of teachers that we have in this particular school. Next week we'll release matric results. You will see how many township schools are giving us 100% pass or more than 90% pass. So it's a huge struggle to change the mentality of our people to say township education can be quality education. It's a huge task to change mentality of people that want to apply at a certain school in town purely because they love the school uniform of that school. And we are committed as Gauteng to ensure that all our schools must provide quality education so that we don't have this challenge. So Premier, we're left with 700 kids. I'm committing in front of you and in front of society, the HOD is here, that the remaining 700 kids will place them before the end of this month. Last year we concluded the placement around March, but this year at least we are concluding this placement before the end of January. Premier, we are proud that in partnership with the Department of Infrastructure Development, we will continue to build more beautiful schools. We will continue to eradicate mobile schools. We will continue to eradicate asbestos schools. We will continue to build schools of what we term schools of the future. Schools of the future is where there is no chalkboard, where there's no chalk, where there's no duster. The only thing that you have is one learner, one tablet, one teacher, one laptop, one school, class, one smart board, and the entire school will have connectivity so that they can work. That's the future that you have, Premier. There is a school, myself and the MEC, I know, will conclude that school. It's not far from here. It was an asbestos school. So that we finally conclude and eradicate all asbestos schools. And we are proud in our province, Premier, that we don't have schools with pit toilets. We are proud in our province, we don't have schools that is not connected to electricity or water. And we want to accelerate the eradication of mobile schools in our province so that we can have proper schools here in Gauteng. Premier, I'm proud of the Department of DID. We are not building Bombay School or Amber School. We are building proper schools. As in Bombay, as in Amber School, it's a real school. And majority of parents that are here, especially those that left school through the window, they regret that you didn't have schools in there. They regret. And we are saying, gone are the days where we are building Ampur schools. And gone are the days where all the schools are offering the same thing. Premier, in this province, in this region in particular, we've opened a school that specializes in water. We've built a school in partnership with the army and other institutions of government. They assist our children to understand the economy of water in this region. But I must register, Executive Mayor, my dissatisfaction that after opening that school, within 2 weeks, there was a break-in and they stole all the computers. Worst of, they even set us alight in the school. But I'm not going to be discouraged. We'll continue to attend and to deal with those issues. Premier, we received 102,000 new learners in our province. And if you check 102,000 new learners, it means we need to build 100 new schools, MEC. Now that we have passed COVID, and I believe we have passed it, MEC, and from the discussion that we had that were chaired by the Premier yesterday of the PCCC, we can go back and assure our people that at least we used to open a new school every month. At least we can open a new school either in 2 months and gain the momentum and go back and open a new school every month. Because if we do that, we'll meet the demands that are coming from new developments and it'll also meet the demands that are coming from new informal settlement. As I close, Premier, and as I invite you, Premier, to come and address us, I want to take this opportunity to thank all our educators in Gauteng, Premier. Premier, as I'm speaking to you now, 95% of our educators in Gauteng are now fully vaccinated and they are ready to teach our children. This is an achievement that is a demonstration that our teachers are putting they love our children and are prepared to protect the lives of our children. And the remaining 5%, Premier, I was very worried, I checked, those are genuine reasons. People that either tested positive, they're in the state that MEC Roti Queen is in, she's in, and therefore we believe that we can reach the 98%. We are also proud, Premier, that we are amongst the other provinces where those that are age 12 and above in high school have decided to fully vaccinate as well. This is another achievement that will allow us to open our schools. Premier, we support the call of the minister, the call that was made by the minister yesterday, that our schools are not super spreaders, that we must move with speed to ensure that our children come to school every day. That we must bury this thing of our children coming to school as if they are working at a firm, they attend through shifts. We support that call, but we must be responsible in supporting that call. We must monitor the situation, we must adhere to the COVID protocols, but the sooner our children come back, the better. We were in our meeting with the minister, Premier. Since COVID, we are 3 years behind with curriculum. 3 years behind. So we'll only cover the lost ground probably in 2023, 2024. So the sooner all the children come back to school, the better, so that we can ensure that everyone is fine. Let me conclude by welcoming all our grade R's and grade 1s. The future is bright in this province. Gone are the days where we'll teach you to sing and praise a frog. we will teach you from grade R. You saw them, Premier. From grade R, they are playing music. They are not using a brick to say woo, 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 woo in a classroom. Pushing a brick. Gone are the days where our grade 1s and our grade R, they only come in the morning to sing and eat and sleep. Now they are taught how to fly drones. Now they are taught many things that will make them to be better citizens. So we want to welcome all our grade Rs and our grade 1s to the education system. And to all those parents that still have their children at home, we are coming for you. We will take those children back to the classroom sooner than later. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome the Premier of our province, Mr. David Makura, to come and address us. That's the person that is making education to be supported in government. Premier Makura.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to our program director, the head of Department of Education in our province, HOD Musue. Thank you, MEC Lesufi, for getting all of us out today, the Executive Council, public representatives in our province. We are all out because we want to be certain that we start this academic year properly. I want to acknowledge the presence in our midst of MEC Mutara, the MEC for Infrastructure Development, the Mayor of the District, Executive Mayor Lerato Maluka, and the Mfuleni Executive Mayor, Councillor Sipho Khadebe. I also want to acknowledge our councillor here, Councillor Ligeletsane of this ward, a member of the provincial legislature, who's in the Education Portfolio Committee, Member Liseho Makubela. I don't see him, but he was with us as we started this morning. I want to acknowledge all the senior officials of both the Department of Infrastructure Development, Education, and the Office of the Premier, our senior officials in charge of education in this district, as well as those responsible for maintenance of our facilities in this district. And most importantly, I want to acknowledge our teachers and our learners who have joined us today, because today belongs to you, really. As we start this year, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that a big welcome to all of you to the new academic year 2022, and take this opportunity on behalf of the provincial government to wish you a productive, safe, and healthy new year, a year marked by significant progress to overcome the many challenges that we had last year. I hope all of you are refreshed with renewed vigor and energy to overcome all the challenges and seize the opportunities of the new year. And I also want to say that it may be very useful just to say to someone next to you, compliments of the new season. Someone next to you. Uh, 2021 has come and gone. It was a very, very tough year. Whatever difficulties we encountered in that year, we must be grateful that we are here, safe and sound, ready to start with the challenges of the new year. and ready to pursue our purpose. For us public representatives, our purpose is to really serve the people of our country. And those in education, your purpose is to deliver quality education to a new generation of South Africans, to these children, in every part of our republic, in every part of our province. That's our purpose. I would like to take the opportunity, MEC Lesufi, to also convey our gratitude to all the education stakeholders, the teachers, the learners, the parents of these learners, the school governing bodies, the teachers' unions, who have worked extremely hard despite the disruptive impact of COVID-19 to try and maintain some decent ongoing education and learning since the advent of COVID-19 in 2020. Our hearts go out to families of those who have lost their lives due to COVID-19, but also to those in this sector who may have lost their lives due to other illnesses, due to crime, but also due to road accidents, which is something we know we go through every year. May we say to them, their souls may rest in eternal peace. And the work they did in their communities, in our schools, is something we will always remember and cherish. We are ready to start 2022 academic year. MEC Lesufi has said so. The outlook for COVID-19 this year is still something we know. We can't with certainty say where we will be by the end of this year. As MEC Lesufi said yesterday, the Gauteng Provincial Coronavirus Command Council had its first meeting of the year, at which our advisory committee on COVID-19 presented to us what the trajectory and the trends and the epidemiology of the pandemic is in our province since last year. We are happy that the numbers, all indications and all factors from infection to admission in hospital, as well as mortality, those numbers have been declining since just before Christmas in our province. But we are concerned that as many people have moved out of the province and are now coming back, there may be some significant indications, and we have seen it in 1 or 2 days already. We don't know what the medium-term impact of that would be, that there may be some indications of increase in new COVID infections. We are certain that everything is being done by our teams in the province, and the provincial government, working with municipalities, have been doing everything with the support of national government to deal with this pandemic. One thing very clear is that the 2022 academic year should be different, MEC Lesufi. It should be different because the education sector has had serious difficulties as a result of the outbreak of this pandemic. It has been a stumbling block to full teaching and learning. The impact of the disrupted education since the outbreak of the pandemic has been devastating on our learners. It has had a huge impact on their long-term development. And those studies, new studies that are emerging, both from our National Department of Basic Education and other independent studies, are showing that COVID-19 would have long-term impact on the development of our children in these years. And this may not only be in basic education, it will also go into further and higher education. We know COVID-19 has had an impact on the economy and livelihoods of people, but it also has had an impact on overall well-being of people. So it is for that reason that we must be concerned, and we should do everything in our power to ensure that 2022 is a much better year. One thing for sure, we are not in 2020. In 2020 March, when COVID started, we didn't know what to do in many respects. Even the scientists, many scientists said we are dealing with a new virus. We have gone through 4 waves now. We are still, yes, in the 4th wave. We are still in the 4th wave. We are not out of the 4th wave. But we know quite a lot. And we have built tremendous capacity as a people in the consciousness of every citizen. COVID-19 is an issue. And people have basic education and basic information, basic civic education, and basic information about what to do. So we are not in 2020. Because in 2020, COVID-19 ravaged us. I remember that 2,201 schools across our province had incidents over a different period, involving 3,500 staff members over a different period in 2020. And over 2,000 learners, teachers, and over 1,000 learners were also affected when COVID-19 started in 2020. As I said, at that time, all of us, the whole society, there was a great scare. There was a lot of fear. Even though the messages were about wear your mask, social distance, sanitize, wash your hands, but it was at the very early stage of this pandemic. At that time, we didn't have also the vaccination. So in 2021, we had incidents or cases in our schools in Gauteng, over 8,140 cases, involving 14,000 staff members and learners across the system in Gauteng province. And there were different periods at the peak of each wave where the entire system was threatened, in both 2020 and in 2021. The difference between these 2 years is that we start 2020 with a significant section of our population vaccinated, and vaccines are available, and everybody who really wants to vaccinate knows they can get vaccinated. There is no excuse. Of course, we know people make choices. We start 2022 with over 95% of our teachers vaccinated, as MEC Lesufi has said. We have over 200,000 learners in Gauteng who vaccinated just at the time that the opening was done for those between the ages, those below 18 who didn't qualify earlier on. So even as we start this academic year, we want to make a call that those who are not vaccinated, please continue to take this opportunity of the availability of vaccines to do so. And if you were not convinced that vaccines do work, just look at what happened as the pandemic was evolving. Yes, we went through a very difficult, ravaging, terrible 3rd wave with the Delta variant. We lost many lives that time. We had many people admit our healthcare system was not coping during the 3rd wave. Omicron has been different during the 4th wave, but the principal explanation really is that the fact that more people were vaccinated in Gauteng province. We have over 4 million people who are fully vaccinated as I speak, over 4 million. Just about 5 million of them have a single dose of each, but over 4 million, from the report we received yesterday, over 4 million of them are fully vaccinated. We have administered in our province over 7 million vaccine doses, and we are ready also to do the booster shots, particularly for those sections of the population who are vulnerable, who have been predisposed to chronic ailments, and those who are senior citizens. So I want to emphasize that we are in a much better position to deal with the threat of this pandemic, the ongoing threat of this pandemic. We are in a much better position. We are better informed. We have vaccines available. And even as individuals, we just know what not to do if you want to avoid exposing yourselves. We also know what to do when you have been exposed to going out like today. We also know what to do. When you get back, what do you do? So there's much more information, there's much more evidence that masking, wearing your mask, I hope many of you may say, I have been with people who later reported that they were infected with COVID. I've been with a lot of them, but just keeping in a disciplined and compromised way, keeping your mask on helps you a great deal to limit the exposure. And I know it is tempting. Let me see that even when we get in halls like this, it's tempting. When we see our friends in the media, Happy New Year media, you would like us to take off our masks, I know that. But my own experience is that even you would know, some of you would, as in the nature of your work in the media, you have also been in the vicinity of people later who reported that they were positive. But when you have your mask on, we know that does work. We want to repeat this message. The masks do work. Vaccination does work. To the extent that we can, avoiding crowded spaces does work. So, getting into 2022, knowing what we know, with all the arsenals we have in our hands, certainly we've got to manage the pandemic differently. And one thing we can't afford is complete shutdown again and again. So that we know quite a lot about the pandemic. The economy cannot afford it. People whose livelihoods depends on going out there to sell or to play music or to do performances, the creative industry people or the sports personalities, people in the various sectors of our economy who earn incomes either by selling or by working, cannot afford again, as we go into the third year, we can afford the switching on and off of our economy. As I say, we know quite a lot. We have built a great deal of capacity. But let me come back to schools. I think that there's a grave danger. Evidence is coming to the fore that having the rotational system, which was introduced understandably as part of managing the pandemic, but the rotational attendance of learners is really not working. When some learners are at school and others are on this day or on the following days, and then others are at home, and then they will come on other days. This is a major disruption, and it does have a huge impact on the long-term development of our children. And therefore, it is like we are building a foundation. Education is the foundation of a house called the nation. The strongest foundation you can ever build is how much serious you put in your education system. And for every child, for every community, for every citizen, to get decent education. So we are deeply concerned. I want to repeat this. We are deeply concerned that if we don't soon get to some measure of normality with regard to bringing back all the learners, many of whom are at home, there will be long-term consequences that would be difficult to bear. There's all evidence already. We have over 1,200 schools, mainly in the township, that are doing rotation at the moment. Because we can't comply with the current regulations of social distancing. What does this do? It leaves many of these learners at home. Schools lose teaching time, the teachers lose teaching time, and these learners also lose learning time. But there are also other consequences. There's mental distress that accumulates and is associated with the fact that the more we have our children attending school in the way we are, it's distress for parents. It is distress for us as parents. Because this system has an impact on parents, and I'll come back to that point, particularly on women. But there's also evidence that the rotational system, where some of our learners stay at home and they can't come to school on all the days, this also has an impact on violence and abuse. These children, when parents are away at work and kids are at home in the communities, and there's nobody set for sure certain what's happening with these children. Whereas the schools are the safest places when a parent goes to work and the child is at school. At least at that time that the child is at school, the parent cannot be worried about what's happening with my child. But there's also other consequences. When these children are at home, they miss the school-based meals. Now, feeding, the school nutrition program is an important development intervention in the growth and development of our children. And we have seen it during COVID, especially during 2020 when we had various lockdowns. The impact of this, the fact that, and sometimes as people, we don't take seriously the impact that the school nutrition is having just on making sure that children from poor households have something more decent to eat. So they miss their meals. This also, again, has a huge impact on their own development. Children who are out of school, we also have more evidence that shows that when children are out of school, the burden shifts to the mothers. This burden shifts to women, the burden of care. When these children are not at school, for those days that they are not at school, the burden shifts to women about what they do. As I said earlier on, the parents who are working have to make a plan now, which was not there before, about what do I do with my child on the days that the child is not at school. So this is a significant social and disorganizing impact that must be attended to. So we are going to pay priority to this matter. The Minister of Education needs to know, Minister Njimotsecha, that we support the effort of the department as you make representation to the National Coronavirus Command Council. We want our children to return to schools. We really, really want our children to return to schools. Of course, we say return to school safely because we now know how to manage the pandemic, having gone through it again and again. Of course, in so doing, we will continue to work with the education stakeholders, especially the teachers' unions, to do so. But we can't go into another full year. MEC Lesufi, no. We can't go into another full year, not full 2022, with a rotational system. I listened to the minister very carefully this morning. As you were talking about the problem we have with those learners who are not yet allocated to schools. You were saying we'll solve this problem by the end of this month. We definitely want to see the return of all our learners into schools as soon as possible. And I think there have also been scientists who have argued that learners are much safer in school than when they are not in school. And that's something that we really, really want to support. Having said that, on COVID-19, I also want to say that this year, we want to focus on the reopening of the economy. It is extremely critical that we get more people back to work. And I've made this point already, that we want to see more sectors of our economy opening. We want to see various sectors that generate income for people opening. We want to see more people able to support their own livelihoods and their families. This also includes much more enhanced interventions around the economic recovery, a lot of which we will talk about. But education is central. If the government starts the year, the most important thing at the beginning of the year is education. And so the point we are making today, again, is that we need to increase greater levels of normality. We know we will get further work. The advisory committee on COVID-19 in our province, which also works with the national one, is doing more modeling to give us indications of what may be coming. We hope, and I'm talking about hope here, we hope we are reaching a period where we will transition from a pandemic to an endemic. And I'm saying we hope. And all these things we say we must do are important. Our efforts on vaccination are critically important to help this transition from a pandemic to an endemic, because we don't want to return to shutdown. We must continue to manage the various phases. We want the management of the pandemic to be done, but we must do so with an increased pace of opening up. In other words, in 2022, we need more opening up of the economy. And I'm not suggesting reckless opening up. Of course, we must continuously monitor these developments. Is there a new variant? But 2022 must really be the year that we see greater movement out of the switching on and off, and the start and go of various sectors. And that must start with our schools. That's what I want to emphasize. It must start with our schools. So today we are here to open this school, Sitlabucha, primary. This is a new type of school. In 2016, we were in this vicinity in 2016 on our work, doing community work on Derisano, and amongst many issues that members of the community raised were about the fact that what we had here was the small old school together with some what do you call those education at this mobile classroom. The community was quite unhappy, and amongst the many things they said they really need to see tremendous progress on was we need a new primary school. Sitlabucha must be a new primary school. It took us a while, MEC Mutara, from 2016 with the planning, with the budget allocation processes, but also going through the stop and start of managing community protests, as our projects are always characterized by that. It took us a while, but last year, I think, is it March, the school was ready to open, and I came here. The councillor took me around last year and said, Premier, that school has been done. commitment that people said we need a new school, and you said we are going to go back and plan and allocate resources. We'll address it. The councillor said to me, "Councillor, stand up, let them see you, councillor." So that councillor is amongst the people who really led the fight that there must be a new proper school for this community. Let's give him a big round of applause. He led that fight, and the people rewarded him. They voted for him again. They voted for him on the 1st of November because they saw that there's some results here. So, Councillor, this school has been delivered. It's a great pleasure. I want to say to my colleagues, I can't thank you for swimming as fishes. DIT, you have delivered on this because it is your responsibility to do so. The community appreciates it. Education, this is now your facility. The community appreciates it, MEC Lesufi. There is a school here. It's a school that has been built to ensure that there is proper education in this community. And I want to also emphasize that schools are not just beautiful buildings or old buildings. For the school to really deliver on its mission, now the teachers will tell you, and I listen to teacher unions, they will talk about conditions under which we work. Now, when you have a school like this, a beautiful school like this, you really have no excuse than to produce the best results possible. And I want to say that we are now monitoring the performance of schools in our province, not just those that are doing matric. We are doing all the schools. So MEC Lesufi, Setlabucha is now on my radar screen. So the performance, the principal of the school, Madam Principal, where are you sitting? Please stand up, Madam Principal. Your cries have been answered, Madam Principal. You have a beautiful school. We need good results. We need outstanding results. You have no excuse really to MEC Lesufi. You have a good school. We need good results. Let's give the principal a big round of applause. Working with the teachers. I want to conclude by saying the following. MEC Lesufi, Gauteng needs to return to its proper focus on the caliber and quality of education, the caliber of learners we want to emerge out of our system, and the quality of education we want to do. 2 years of disruption by COVID. COVID has had a huge impact, not only on the things I've referred to, but just on the focus of government. So this year, 2022, I would like to see the education flag flying high in Gauteng. Every part of our province, every area of our province, townships and suburbs, we need to see the education machine pumping, responding to issues, supporting our schools, supporting our principals, supporting our teachers, doing everything we need, working with parents in partnership to tackle all the challenges. So as I said earlier on, 2022, we must do everything to return to that flying machine in every sector of work in Gauteng, even in DIT. I want every department and municipality in Gauteng in 2022. We have gone through 2 years of COVID-19. We know COVID-19, we can manage it. There should be no excuse from everybody. No single school, no single department, not even a single municipality, mayors. So we must be, and you have a fresh mandate. You are new mayors. You have been elected just recently. We really have to, Mfuleni, we want to see Mayor Hadebe. We want to see Mfuleni returning to addressing issues. I've been here many times. We need to sort out the water and sewer issues here. We need to sort out the electricity issues. We need to sort out the roads. And we need to get our communities clean. basic service delivery issues. And at a provincial level, we are going to continue to focus principally 2022, our principal focus is on the economy. But we need education, the education machine to be flying. Again, we need, so the first thing I want next week or so when the matric results are announced, MEC Lesufi, I'm seething with anticipation about how have we done. Notwithstanding all the things I've said, everybody is affected the same. All the provinces, there can be a province that say, we were affected by COVID. Because all the provinces were affected by COVID. So I look forward to the announcement next week. I don't know what it is, but Gauteng province must be right there. I often say top dog. Must be amongst the top performing provinces on education. That is why we must get our learners, all our learners, back to school as soon as possible and deliver optimal outcomes and get all our teachers with all the support provided from the health response support provided. There can't be excuses anymore. And the educational support responses provided. And that's what we want in 2022. We want a province that's pumping. The Provincial Executive Council is going to be everywhere. We are going to be everywhere in communities, responding and addressing to the issues that were raised by people during the election campaign. And in doing so, we go there as government. Every mayor who is there must be on the ground. And we go and work there in those communities as government, not as parties. So we can have mayors who are sitting in offices comfortably there. So we should be on the ground with mayors, with the leaders of local government, and there can be a community that has got problems and the mayor does not arrive. The mayor just speaks to the community on television, are afraid of going to the community. We must be a government on the ground, engaging with people, solving problems. That includes making sure that our schools are functioning and our schools are safe. The last point I want to say to this community, this is your school. We can't keep building schools and they are vandalized. And then communities where the schools are sit and they are waiting for government to do something. I know there are many communities that have taken steps. They are working with law enforcement. So this school must be safe. It belongs to this community. And this must be a year of tremendous progress in Gauteng province. Thank you very much.